Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Go Homemade channel. In today's video, we follow a man who makes houses as he goes on an adventure in the forest. While exploring the lush green forest, he stumbled upon the perfect spot to build himself a shelter. With skillful hands and a determined spirit, he quickly set to work, using the natural materials around him to begin construction. He began by meticulously measuring the location, paying close attention to every detail to ensure it was the perfect spot for his shelter. Once he was satisfied with the location, he rolled up his sleeves and prepared to turn his vision into reality. With strong, calloused hands, built up over years of hard work, he began digging into the ground. As the hole grew deeper, so did his determination. Each handful of soil removed bringing him one step closer to transforming this untouched corner of the forest into a place of safety and comfort. What might have seemed like a simple act to some was, for him, the beginning of an incredible journey, a testament to his resourcefulness and unwavering spirit in the face of the wild. Before starting on the main structure, he decided to design a functional kitchen area to meet his most basic needs. Above the stove, he carefully dug straight down into the earth to create a functional smoke vent. With his skillful hands, he worked tirelessly, removing soil bit by bit to shape a vertical chimney that would safely carry smoke away from his cooking area. With a resourceful mind and deft hands, he designed a simple yet effective wooden stand of frame to hold the logs, securely as he sawed them to the perfect size for his project. With the wooden logs prepared and ready, he turned his attention to laying the foundation for his shelter. He began by digging deep into the earth, crafting sturdy holes to anchor the two primary wooden posts that would serve as the backbone of the structure. The posts were carefully positioned to ensure they stood firm, capable of bearing the weight of the entire framework. Once he had gathered enough logs, he began the painstaking process of cutting them to the exact size he needed. With the logs ready, he began arranging them into the frame for the roof. He began by positioning the longest and thickest beams on the cross beams he had installed earlier, forming the frame for the roof. He worked meticulously, paying close attention to every detail as he assembled the roof frame, ensuring it could withstand the harsh forces of nature. Each log and beam was carefully positioned and secured, not only for structural integrity, but also to distribute weight evenly across the framework. Next, he moved on to installing the timbers for the front and back walls of the house. Carefully selecting each timber, he ensured that the timbers were straight, sturdy, and of similar dimensions to create a uniform and stable structure. With the shelter frame in place, he meticulously nailed each timber along the house's frame, following its contours to achieve a tight and precise fit. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, a thick fog began to roll in, shrouding the trees in an eerie shroud, but he remained undaunted. With this time spurred on, he worked tirelessly, his hands moving with practiced efficiency as he fixed each wooden bar to the frame. He prepared more logs to complete the two side walls and continued digging along the sides of the structure, preparing the ground for additional wooden stakes. Once the holes were dug, he began lifting the logs into place, anchoring them firmly into the ground. Each log was positioned precisely, aligned perfectly to form a solid, cohesive wall. With unwavering focus, he devoted himself to building a wall that would stand the test of time. Once the first wall was completed, he turned to the second wall using his strong, deft hands to build each wooden beam along the pre-made frame. His muscles tensed and relaxed in a steady rhythm, his movements blending strength with finesse. The sound of his hammer striking wood echoed through the quiet forest, a rhythmic cadence that seemed to harmonize with the natural stillness around him. Yet, despite the calm surroundings, his determination burned brightly, driving him to press on without hesitation. As the second wall nears completion, each log is adjusted to perfection, ensuring the structure will be as strong and uniform as the previous one. After countless hours of effort and dedication, his wall was finally completed. With 2 solid walls completed, he set about building the stairs that would connect the ground to the entrance of his shelter. With a clear plan in mind, he placed the logs on a makeshift saw stand and began sawing them to the required length. With the logs ready, he began assembling the frame. The base was securely anchored to the wall and ground for stability, with angle brackets providing the strength needed to support the weight of whoever would use the stairs. He then built each step individually, sawing and chiseling the ends of each log to fit them into the frame at regular intervals. Each step was carefully measured and placed to ensure even spacing, both for functionality and balance. The repetitive process of cutting, aligning, and securing the planks was almost meditative, his actions guided by a combination of experience and determination. He decided to enhance the appearance of his shelter by digging the earth around it, carefully shaping the surrounding area to make the structure more defined and prominent. After preparing the logs, he began assembling the frame for his sleeping area. He placed the larger logs as a base, arranged the prepared logs on top, and nailed them together closely to form a comfortable bed. After completing the main structure of the house, he turned his focus to the next critical task, preparing the wooden beams for the roof. He began securing the beams together, using a hammer and nails to fasten them tightly. Each swing of the hammer echoed through the forest, a rhythmic sound that signaled progress and determination. He worked methodically, aligning each beam perfectly to form a stable and even surface. His hands moved with precision, driving each nail deep into the wood, ensuring the connections were firm and secure. He then selected 2 shorter, sturdier pieces of wood, which he carefully placed on the roof. With the saw in hand, he began to cut along the marked lines, and after completing the cuts, he used a short piece of wood to prop up the door. The roof entrance, skillfully crafted and thoughtfully placed, was another testament to his ingenuity and resourcefulness in transforming raw materials into a home. Next, he took a large sheet of plastic to act as a waterproof coating for the roof. He carefully spread the plastic out, spreading it evenly over the wooden frame, making sure it covered the entire surface. The plastic glistened slightly in the light, a reliable barrier against rain and moisture. To secure the plastic, he began placing wooden planks on top, strategically placing them along the edges and in the middle. Once everything was in place, he grabbed a hammer and nails. He hammered each nail through the planks to secure the plastic securely in place. After securing the plastic sheet, he moved on to the next step, covering the roof with soil to reinforce it. He began collecting loose soil from the surrounding area, carefully climbing onto the roof, and began spreading the soil over the plastic sheet. He worked methodically, stopping occasionally to press the soil down with his hands, compacting it against the plastic sheet. A layer of soil not only helps the roof to be more stable against harsh weather, a thick layer of soil will help the shelter to be cool during the day, warm at night, and dry during heavy rains. With the soil layer complete, he moved on to the final step of camouflaging and insulating the roof. He collected lush vegetation and fallen leaves from the forest floor, carefully selecting materials that blended seamlessly with the natural surroundings. Climbing back onto the roof, he began spreading fresh grass and leaves over the soil. He worked with precision, making sure the material was evenly distributed and that no plastic or soil was exposed. The natural mulch added a layer of protection, keeping the shelter warm and dry while remaining nearly indistinguishable from the surrounding forest. He found a long, sturdy, hollow bamboo pole and deciding that it would be the perfect choice to act as a chimney for his shelter. He carefully placed it over the chimney he had previously constructed. Once the chimney was in place, he focused on testing the functionality of the stove. As the fire ignited, smoke began to rise and flow naturally through the bamboo chimney. The system worked perfectly, a testament to his thoughtful design and resourcefulness. And so his first house was completed. It was time for him to rest before continuing his new journey. After a well-deserved night's rest in the cozy shelter he had built, he awoke refreshed and ready to begin the next phase of his journey. Once he found a location for his second shelter, he didn't want to waste any time, so he got to work. He started by clearing the area, carefully removing dense undergrowth with a machete and raking away dry leaves. He finished cleaning and used his tools to dig a hole in the ground. After digging to the appropriate depth, he used a vine to carefully measure and mark the dimensions of the foundation. He dug deeper into the earthen walls, his hands steady as the shovel cut through the earth. Each movement was measured, making sure the edges of the hole remained straight and clear. As he worked, the shape of the space began to take shape. Its corners became sharper, its walls more defined. Gradually, the earthen walls began to develop more structure, forming a neat square space. He stepped outside for a moment to light a fire, and when it had settled, he returned to his task, more determined than ever. Inside the shelter, he focused on fine-tuning the earthen walls with precision. He carefully scraped and carved the walls with his tools, working slowly and deliberately to ensure each surface was smooth and even. He gathered the strongest logs to make the main pillars of the shelter. Then he dug holes to anchor them. Once the holes were ready, he placed the logs in place and compacted the soil around them to hold them in place. To securing the posts, he carefully stripped the bark from each log, smoothing the surfaces to reveal the clean, natural wood beneath. With his tools in hand, he began to carve and chisel precise notches into the ends of each log. These notches were carefully crafted to create perfect interlocking joints, ensuring that the logs would fit together securely when assembled into the shelter's framework. Over time, he brought in straight, perfectly shaped planks of wood to reinforce the walls. He worked carefully, placing each log precisely into the ground, ensuring a tight fit. The contrast between the white wood and the earth tones of the walls was striking, adding beauty to the shelter as it gradually took shape. After carefully securing and nailing the inner walls in place, he turned his attention to the outer walls. He knew the shelter needed to be well protected from the elements, so he carefully selected more of the beautiful white wood he had found earlier. These new planks were smooth, strong, and flawless, perfect for completing the exterior. He continued his work with focus and precision, ensuring that the exterior walls were not only sturdy, but also securely connected to the roof. Once the walls were securely fastened, he turned his attention to connecting them to the roof. Using wooden planks, he carefully attached the tops of the walls to the roof frame. As each plank was secured, the structure began to take on its final shape. The walls and roof became a single unit, seamlessly integrating to create a shelter that was not only sturdy, but also weatherproof. He continued the process of covering the roof with wooden planks, carefully selecting each plank to ensure it was strong and durable. He placed each plank one by one, securing it securely with nails. The planks fit together, forming a sturdy layer that protected the shelter from the elements. As he worked, the rhythmic sound of his hammer echoed throughout the forest, each nail driving deeper into the wood, securing the planks. He searched for a large, sturdy log to serve as a base for the floor of his shelter. He carefully peeled back the bark, revealing the clean, natural wood underneath. He then carefully planed the wood and arranged the planks on the ground, making sure they fit tightly together to form a solid surface. Once each piece was in place, he nailed the wood, securing each plank firmly. He worked tirelessly, concentrating relentlessly, until the last board was nailed down. The sturdy wooden planks were now in place, creating a dry, safe surface for the shelter. The shelter, once just an idea, had become a real home, each step of the process a testament to his hard work and determination. Knowing that the door would be essential for security and privacy, he set to work with great determination. With steady hands, he used a planer to smooth the surface of the wood, smoothing away rough edges to create a smooth and even finish. The wood transformed under his skillful hands, becoming the perfect base for the door. After cutting the slats, he used a tool to create notches in the frame, allowing the slats to fit securely. The pieces were then fastened with nails, forming the rectangular shape of the door. Once finished, he started to bring it in to assemble onto the house frame, and then he cut and fitted the handle for the door. After completing the door, he shifted his focus back to the shelter's exterior. The next task at hand was to finish the outside floor, ensuring that it was just as strong and well constructed as the rest of the shelter. Once the planks were shaped, he began to lay them carefully along the outer edges of the shelter's foundation. He positioned each one with care, checking the fit before securing them in place. With his hammer, he nailed each plank down firmly, making sure the floor was solid and stable. He found a sturdy, round log and carefully hollowed out a small hole in the center to create a simple stove. Using his tools, he slowly carved the hole, ensuring it was deep and wide enough to hold a fire. This simple stove will provide warmth and a place to cook, adding a crucial element to his shelter and making it feel more like home. With a determined effort, he chopped the wood into smaller pieces and used these as kindling. He carefully arranged them inside the hollow log to burn, and while the fire burned, he cooked himself a delicious meal. He spent the morning cleaning the area around his shelter, carefully clearing away dirt and leaves to create a private spot of bud, where he could sit and enjoy the peaceful surroundings. He continued his work, digging the ground with a firm determination. After digging the necessary holes, he began selecting sturdy trees and branches, each carefully selected based on their strength and size. He carefully placed each wooden post into the ground, making sure they were upright and sturdy. The structure slowly began to take shape, the frame of his viewing platform gradually emerging. With a steady hand, he worked on the intricate details of the joints, ensuring they were strong enough to support the weight and stability of the roof. As the wooden beams began to take shape, he connected them one by one to the frame of the pillars. The rhythmic sound of his tools echoed through the forest as he worked, each movement careful and sure. He then focused on securing the wooden beams together, ensuring that every joint was solid and stable. Using a hammer, he drove nails into the notches where the beams met, tightening the connections and ensuring the frame would not shift. He continued with determination, carefully placing the wooden planks side by side across the frame of the roof. Each piece was measured and adjusted to fit snugly, covering the entire structure. As he laid each plank down, he hammered in nails to secure them firmly, ensuring that the roof would hold up against the elements. As he worked, the place where he had imagined resting and relaxing amidst the natural beauty of the forest began to take form. Next, he gathered a selection of wooden branches and carefully cut them down to size. Afterward, he skillfully pieced them together, forming a simple yet sturdy surface on top of a larger, solid piece of wood. With steady hands, he used his tools and chisel to carve grooves along the edges of the wood, creating deep, precise grooves so that the two smaller pieces of wood could fit perfectly. The task required patience and attention to detail as he worked slowly to ensure the ruts were evenly spaced and deep enough to provide a secure connection. Each groove was carefully shaped, ensuring that when he placed the two smaller wooden pieces into the notches, they would fit snugly and stay in place. He carefully arranged the wooden planks on top of the frame, making sure they were aligned perfectly to form a flat, even surface. With a hammer and nails, he began to secure each plank in place, driving the nails carefully to avoid splitting the wood. He carefully put them together, and the table slowly came to life, a sturdy, rustic piece of furniture perfect for his little hideout. Not forgetting to create a chair to complete his relaxing space, he searched for suitable logs. After many hours of hard work, this became the perfect place for him to relax, enjoy tea, and admire the peaceful forest view. After completing the second chair, his second home was finally complete. A sense of accomplishment washed over him as he looked around at the sturdy structure he had built from scratch. Once everything was in place, he decided it was time to reward himself with a meal for all his hard work and dedication. Thank you all for joining him on this journey. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss the next ones. Goodbye for now and see you soon.